and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, Malcontents. My name is David. I am the Malcontent, and welcome to another edition of Malcontentment Happy Hour, the show that is longer than an hour, but we call it Happy Hour anyway. Today is Thursday, February 18th. Jennifer, where the hell is this month going?
I don't know. But also, when you were messing with the studio lights, you made my Alexa mad and it tried to cancel some subscription I had. So
I overheard that your Alexa was listening to my Alexa and they were in Inception mode. Yes. Hopefully everybody in the world can hear us. I see both of the green bars going away here. So
yeah. Well, hey, that's a good start, David. That's a good start.
We can only hope. I don't see a whole bunch of comments going, I can't hear your asses. So, Jennifer, we have a really big show today. Before we get started, the first thing I want to say, spam those hearts. That's the first thing. If you love our mods, you love your admins, you love independent media, the first thing you can do is help us out. Spam those hearts. It messes with the algorithm on Facebook because Facebook messes with you. Yeah, when we post stuff that really makes you angry and you don't want to see, Facebook knows that. And then Facebook intentionally puts stuff that you don't want to see on the wall because when you get angry, Facebook makes more money. Crazy, isn't it? So if you want to mess with the Facebook algorithm, spam those hearts. You can give Zuckerberg a big middle finger by doing that. If you're on Twitch or Periscope, you can spam those hearts too. I know some people have been giving us super hearts. Periscope's going away in like a month, so it doesn't do anything for us. But thank you so much for the super hearts over there. If you are on Twitch or if you're on YouTube, I can't spam hearts. You could just like put a thing like, I love you mods, or a big long, like I'm seeing in the comments right now. And you could do that. And Jennifer, with that intro, one last thing.
What?
Share, watch party. Get the word out there. If you're watching us on Periscope or Twitter, go ahead and do a retweet. If you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube, you can go, hey, cool content right here. You should be watching it. Jennifer, you ready for the land acknowledgement?
I am.
All right, let's do this.
Malcontent News comes to you from Seattle, Washington, the occupied homelands of Coast Salish peoples. We are grateful to live and work as guests on these lands, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. This land acknowledgement is but one small gesture in the ongoing process of working towards repairing and sustaining relations with Coast Salish lands, waters, peoples, and their other than human kin.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. I know that I love that we have added this to the show. I really do. Excuse me. Does anyone else like having allergies? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, my nose is running and it's just nuts. By the way, this is for all the dogs out there.
No.
Squeaky pig alert. We got to get out there. Spam those hearts for Squeaky Pig. Streamworks is in the house. Streamworks, we love you. And yes, I know that you have said in the comments, like, we should do stuff together. I know you've shared our content. We've shared your content. And I agree. We should do more together. We need the content because it's getting crazy. Jennifer, it's getting crazy.
I know. I've been seeing like the news feed all day, but it's my daughter's birthday. Shout out to my daughter who turned 17 today. And so I've been kind of like staying out of it, but I've been seeing everything come through. And it's been like a really busy news day.
It has been a busy day. And I think with that, let's go ahead and we're going to jump into our first story. And our first story is going to take us through a series of contrasts. Tuesday was a roller coaster of a day, malcontents, particularly Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening, the Pacific Northwest African American Museum, which is located essentially at Jimi Hendrix Park, had a service to try to bring unity to the community. 2 lives were lost 16 days ago. In the parking, no, not 16 days. Man, it's like, I can't believe it is that short. 9 days ago in that parking lot. The life of Gregory Taylor, 45 years old, who apparently was in a mental health crisis and had a gun. Jennifer, I've expressed my views on common sense gun laws and how maybe people in mental health crisis shouldn't have access to guns, but that's a whole separate conversation for another day. Yes. And the other victim, which I think initially got lost in all of this in this complicated story, is Anicia Valencia, who was only 23 years old, a Federal Way. She was studying in college to be a veterinarian, and she worked at Olive Garden. And there was a beautiful service that was done that we covered, and we're going to highlight some of that. And Jennifer, I'm going to roll the video clip.
Okay. I'm Lanisha Ibarra with the Northwest African American Museum. And this is a turning point for our community. A turning toward light and a turning toward love. And your presence here tonight begins this turning point. The power of the cry. The power of the cry. I think about my Savior Jesus in the 7 last words and how important it was for him to message the freedom of acknowledging the pain, the freedom of being able to sit with something that is more about the presence of an absence, of the absence of the presence. And I thought about what it means to get a call.
Deep bonds of love have been torn apart, and a community once again feels the stain of violence and grief. The Central District experienced a tragedy last Tuesday when Miss Valencia and Gregory Taylor tragically lost their lives here in this parking lot. And because we share a common humanity, this event strikes a blow at the core of our being as our souls cry out, "How long, O Lord, how long?" Jimi Hendrix once said, "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will have peace." Let me say that again. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will have peace.
I didn't know what to expect when I came here tonight. But I do know that most of you didn't know Anais. And I think that you should know that she was unique and beautiful. And her heart was open. It was all the way open. She had so much love for everybody. There was a lot of pastors and preachers talking, and as a young teenage girl, she decided she wanted to be baptized. And when the preacher asked her, "Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" she said, "Of course." Like, it was just the dumbest question in the world. She loved Seattle. She absolutely loved it. She was a daughter. She wasn't my daughter. She was my niece. She was my child. And I know that she's probably here tonight because I know her. And I want to tell you, Anais, I miss you. I love you. She'll never happen. And I want to say thank you to everybody for everything that you have said and done tonight. And I know that Anais really appreciates it. That's all.
Anais Valencia was 23 years old. And she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time at the wrong moment. And
Yeah.
it's as simple as that.
Now, was that her aunt at the very end that was speaking? That was kind of...
That was her aunt that was
Yeah.
speaking at the very end. There was a cousin that spoke also. The video would have become about 5.5 minutes long.
Mhm.
Jennifer, I'm really trying to squish it down. So his words, which were also as powerful and as beautiful as the aunt's were, unfortunately I had to put it on the cutting room floor. If you want to watch it again, you can find it on Twitch. You can find it on Facebook. You can also find it on YouTube. So there are 3 different channels that are very easy to find those videos. The comments from the family are towards the end of those videos. There were a wide range of clergy that were represented there, Jennifer, including from the Jewish community, which made me like, oh, I'm verklempt. As well as a number of others. Apparently she was a spiritual individual, as we heard from her aunt. It was just a beautiful service. And the other thing was, in contrast to the cold and the snow and the rain that we had, it was a beautiful night.
Yeah, it really was. I actually watched some of our live stream when I was grading midterms, but I didn't catch the aunt's speech, which was like really, really moving. I ended up watching it shortly before we went on air. But yeah, it was a beautiful night for a service and like really, really touching gathering.
The message, the theme of this was, today is a new beginning, and, to be the light and embrace the light. And it was a beautiful service. And then this leads into our next story.
Yep.
People left at about 7:20 from Jimi Hendrix. And 2 hours later, we go to story number 2.
Yep.
The first thing I want to start off with before we move into this section, suicide is a tough topic. And whenever we bring up the topic of suicide, we always call this out. If you are feeling desperate, if you are feeling hopeless, if you are having suicidal ideation, especially where depression and drug addiction has grown, we have this story up on our on our site at Malcontent News. There is help. And the first place that you can start is by calling 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Hotline number. Mods, admins, if you could put that into the chat in the various channels, that would be really appreciated. There is hope. And what you are experiencing right now, as awful as it may feel, is only temporary. And I speak to you as a survivor. And so, Jennifer, we go into this terrible story that happened down on the Seattle waterfront. And I think to give some background, Seattle police get a 911 phone call that comes from the Port Police. We've since learned, and we're going to play that. That's why we rolled that warning. We're going to play the 911 call. Seattle police knew what they were going into when they showed up. They knew they were dealing with a armed, very distraught, suicidal man who had already committed self-harm upon themselves. From the initial phone call, which was right before 9:20, if you get it down to the seconds, to the man being dead in the street, that shots fired went over the radio at 9:23 and 50 seconds. So from the call, we need SPD, to the person was dead, was all of 3 minutes. There, of course, were a lot of questions. And Jennifer, we were hearing a lot of things. His hands are up. His hands weren't up. Yeah. He had a knife. Yes, he definitely had a knife. It was a kitchen knife. And we were trying to unpack this in real time as all of this information was pouring in. And once again, I want to call out the team and thank everybody, who was on the ground, who was researching this out. Y'all did a tremendous job in sorting out what was going on and fact from fiction, and also in providing input on, we need to get confirmation on that. Let's not put that out on the air. Jennifer, what I want to play first, there's no viewer discretion on this. We have the PIO statement from the shooting that was done, and I want to play that before we play the video that was released from the Seattle Police Department.
Around 9:20 p.m. this evening, Port of Seattle Police contacted the Seattle Police about a man in crisis, armed with a kitchen knife, at Alaskan Way and Seneca Street. When officers arrived, the man, who had reportedly cut himself, fled down Alaskan Way. Police approached the man and attempted to use a less lethal tool, but the device was ineffective. The man moved toward officers, who fired, fatally striking the man. Representatives of the Office of Police Accountability and the Office of the Inspector General and the SPD Force Investigation Team have responded to the scenes and are investigating. The involved officers will be placed on paid administrative leave in accordance with SPD policy while the investigation is ongoing. And per policy, the department will be releasing video of the incident within 72 hours.
Was the man still armed with the knife when he was shot? How close did he get to officers at the point that they fired on him?
That's information that will come out through the investigation.
And that's the sum total of the video we got from Street Level Journalism, and the video that they released the next day actually answers that question, Jennifer. So the Seattle Police Department released a video. We've edited some of it down for brevity. I'm going to say it again. This is a really tough video. Viewer discretion is advised, and I'm going to put it out there one more time. The National Suicide Hotline phone number is 800-273-8255. There is a better way. And this isn't the way, and I'm not blaming the individual in this. If you're in a dark place, that's who I'm talking to. We've given the warning. We're going to go ahead and roll the clip.
Yeah, please. What are you reporting?
Hi, I've got one of my units that spotted a suicidal subject. He's got a knife to his neck.
This is King County? I'm sorry, who?
No, this is Port of Seattle.
Okay. What address?
Alaskan and Seneca.
Alaskan and Seneca. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, suicidal subject, a knife to his throat.
White male,
White male.
left hand,
So white male, bald, black jacket, black pants. They didn't say anything about drugs or alcohol yet, right?
223.
Oh.
He has cut himself.
So he has cut himself now?
Yep. Yeah, he's cut himself now, yeah.
And still walking?
Yep, still walking.
Okay.
Northbound.
Northbound?
SPD arrived.
No, sounds like your guys are there with him.
Yep.
There he is. Stop. Hold on. Watch out. He's got a knife. You need to stop. Stop where you're at. No. Get down on the ground. Do it. Stop. Please kill me.
Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down!
Stop.
It's tough video. It's really tough video.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but didn't the first statement say something to the effect that they used less lethal stuff that did not phase the man prior to firing their guns?
That is correct, Jennifer. According to the PIO, they used a less lethal option, which did not phase the man at all. What that video shows is Seattle police rolls up, and from door open to shots fired, I timed it, it's 13.9 seconds.
So what was the less lethal form of, like...
It's a really good question, because the other thing is that the radio chatter shows is that there are extensive calls for what it's worth. And again, if you watch the show, I will give anybody an inch. There were extensive calls from officers that were coming to the scene calling for 40 millimeter, and 40 millimeter is essentially, spudge tip round or a beanbag round. I've been hit at them. I've been hit by it at range. So in other words, say not at 20 yards or 10 yards. And I can tell you, even hit by range, they suck. So everything I've read about it, you hit somebody, say at 10 yards with a 40 millimeter sponge tip round. There's really nothing spongy about them. It's going to lay them out.
So here's my question then. So they know what they're going into. Why do they not have these less lethal forms with them is one question. Second, if you know what you're going into, do they not have the ability or access to some kind of mental health professional to accompany them on calls like this? I know that it was very short notice, but I feel like, I don't know. This is
well, now you're asking essentially questions that relate to defunding the police, right? You say defund the police and people start clutching their pearls and getting all terrified and we're all going to die. It's like, that's not what people mean when they say defund the police. What people mean is that for calls like this, you have somebody who is a trained mental health professional that goes, they are backed up by an armed officer. So if it all goes south, and there is literally no other option, because that does happen, then you're not dealing with a situation that is even worse. But the video just doesn't look like they used any option beyond a street execution. The man is clearly distraught. They've cut their own throat. We know they cut their own throat because they said he has his knife to his throat. And then they say he's cut himself, and they show the knife, which is covered in his blood from him cutting himself. And the man alternates from hands up to, and hands down. So in that motion, is he actually swinging at an officer? Or, is this just as he's coming because he's almost like flapping his arms? We're never going to know the answer to that question. Jennifer, the question I have, Why did the police roll up so close to him and give no tactical distance between them and an armed individual? They set themselves up for failure being so close when they came out of the vehicle.
Yeah, that video was like, yeah, watching it again sucked. Yeah, I don't understand that because, yeah, I need a moment. Yeah, there's clearly there's a huge disconnect backed up by evidence between the PIO statement and what actually happened and what we're seeing on, the body cam video.
One of our malcontents, Olivia, has just linked to a story where OPA, Meyerberg of the OPA explains the type of training that Seattle police do and don't get. I do know that not every officer in SPD is issued a taser. That I do know. But Jennifer, anybody who has been to any protest in this city since May 26th, Seattle Police Department has had no problem producing lots of less lethal weapons.
Yeah, no, they have not. They used them all up during the protests. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of questions, and unfortunately, I think there are questions that this city isn't going to answer. I think for most citizens, this is, well, it's suicide by cop, and what can we possibly do about it?
Continue to ask questions, push for mental health professionals to be available for situations like this. I don't know. There's lots of things people can do. You can't just sweep it under the rug and go, oh, well, let's move on.
And I know I've read some comments like, well, what were they supposed to do? Just let them run around the streets and stab people? It's like there was nobody around. It was this person and police officers.
They were clearly most interested in harming themselves.
The last thing is, in that video, I sure hope in the last clip, which is shot from the body cam of an officer that is running up, I hope that officer gets retraining on his weapons discipline, because he literally pulled his gun and pointed it at the back of a fellow officer. It's very clear in that video.
Oh.
So that's an individual that I hope somebody in the Seattle Police Department is going, we need to explain some gun safety to this. Like, you don't point your gun at the back of your fellow employees.
Yeah, that seems pretty common sense to me, but SPD always.
The last thing is, we put this on our Twitter. So you can go to, hopefully I just hit the right button. I hit the right button. You can go to our Twitter. You'll have to scroll a little bit. Yesterday, Jennifer, there was a officer-involved shooting in Houston that ended up in a fatality with a robbery. And Houston, I just happened to stumble across this video, and the Houston PIO was doing a press conference just on the scene, just like in Seattle. And the contrast of how Houston responded to the press inquiries and how they treated the press versus how Seattle acts is night and day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they got to be careful. Seattle's burning to the ground and always on fire and things. So
I'm just going to close with Seattle. You are not as woke as you think that you are. You're not. Do something. Do better. And with that, we're going to do a pause for the cause, Jennifer. Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. Pamela and James, I want to thank you for your generosity and thank you for helping us keep the lights on. I'm going to spam those hearts because I love our Venmos and I love our patron Malcontents. For as little as $5 a month, you can help continue to support to keep independent media independent. And we thank everybody for the support that you provide. All right, Jennifer, I think we're ready for our next segment.
Okay.
10 stories, 20 minutes. It's that simple. It's 20-ish minutes. Jennifer and I have 5 stories each. One is about LGBTIQIA issues. One is about BIPOC issues. One is funny. One is feel good. And then one is a topic that's probably of interest to our audience. Mods and admins, if you could drop the link to the poll. There's a poll? Yes, there's a poll. You get to control the news. We have a poll that is up, and you get to vote on the story that you want Jennifer and I to unpack in more detail. Now, you probably shouldn't vote right now, and we will call out to the mods and admins a couple of times going, hey, drop another link to the poll, drop another link to the poll. Towards the end of the show, mods and admins will close the poll, and they will let us know what story you picked that you want Jennifer and I to talk about more. Jennifer, are we ready to do this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Do it.
Let's do it. All right, first story. The board overseeing the Los Angeles Unified School District has cut $25 million from the budget for school police and will use the money to help fund an achievement plan for Black students. The plan approved by the school board Tuesday will cut 70 sworn officers, 62 non-sworn officers, and 1 support staff position from the Los Angeles School Police Department, leaving it with a force of 211 officers. In addition, police officers will no longer be allowed to use pepper spray on students. Hey, Rochester, New York, you paying attention? This is on top of the $150 million already slashed from the Los Angeles Police Department budget last year. It's worth noting that among the police equipment owned by the Los Angeles Unified School District, Jennifer, is an armored personnel carrier. You get 60 seconds to unpack it.
Armored personnel carrier. I think this is actually fantastic news if they're going to funnel that money from defunding and slashing their police force in the LA, public schools, and channel it into an achievement program that will actually help Black students. I'm all for it. I know that there are, different, LA school district encompasses many different socioeconomic classes. And I'm sure that a high majority of the police force is concentrated in the areas that tend to be more poverty level, BIPOC occupied areas. So I'm hoping that a lot of the slashing they're doing and funding of achievement programs goes to those areas that most need it. But other than that, I think this is a good story, and I don't understand why they have an armored personnel carrier. What does that even look like?
You ready to go to your story?
I'm ready.
All right, the clock is running.
Okay, so we're going to start with Disney Plus last year actually started to put in what they called Stories Matter to kind of account for the negative depictions of race in some of their stories, including Dumbo and Peter Pan. And let's face it, Disney has a long long history of stereotypical and racist representations within their films. The one movie excluded from that, Pocahontas. Pocahontas, far and away, is one of the most racist depictions, stereotypical depictions that Disney has out there. Pocahontas, as she's portrayed in the film, is hypersexualized, nearly adult, has this romantic relationship with John Smith that does not mirror any of the actual history of Pocahontas, who was actually a child when she met John Smith, had a very friendly familial relationship with him, and was actually forced into a church and married to a different John, and ended up going back to London and caught smallpox and died before she got to come home. So there's a lot of Native people, including Indian country today, that are not exactly happy about that.
So I actually have a lot to comment on this. I read this story. I watched several of the video clips that were on there. Mm-hmm. As a wee little lad, I had a record of Disney songs that included from Peter Pan, What Makes the Red Man Red. Yes. I haven't watched that in decades, decades and decades. And I rewatched it today. It is so cringeworthy. This would never fly today. It shouldn't have flown back then. They tried to make a cutesy joke out of it again, right? It's because they're in love and they're blushing. They got so much. They basically got everything wrong for starters. And it was just unbelievably racist. And yes, from a historical standpoint, Pocahontas is a steaming pile of crap. And on top of that, pugs are not evil. And there were no pugs in the new colonies at the time. Pocahontas also slags out pugs.
Yes. Yes, it does. You're right.
All right, story number 3. The United States House of Representatives is expected to vote on the Equality Act next Thursday. The bill would provide sweeping changes and legal protection to the LGBTQIA community, particularly the transgender community. The Equity Act passed the House in May of 2019, but a certain senator named Mitch McConnell said, I'm not going to advance that bill into the Senate. The bill has 3 Senate sponsors, including Jeff Merkley, Cory Booker, and Tammy Baldwin. Mara Kiesling, executive director at the National Center for Transgender Equality, said, and I quote, "No act of Congress can end bias overnight or stop all attacks against transgender people, but the Equality Act is clear. Consistent and nationwide statement that our country believes that all people, including those who are transgender, should be treated fairly and with respect." Jennifer, you get to unpack that.
Yeah, I'm all for, trans rights. Bring it on. Bring on equality. The fact that we're still in a place where people are so concerned about who other people choose to love and who they want to be, and how they identify is extremely troubling, and the fact that it causes this ongoing rampant discrimination because gender roles are so ingrained in our society that people can't see beyond that in any capacity. So yeah, I think it's anything that brings trans equality. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
All right, you ready for your story?
Yeah, let's do it. Mine's not as happy. All right. So the governor of Puerto Rico has declared a state of emergency over gender violence on the island as a step in the right direction, but cautioned that real change can only come after a meaningful shift on the societal level. Activists in Puerto Rico have been calling for years that something needs to be done about ongoing gender violence, which includes trans peoples. But in 2020, there was an increased sense of urgency because the U.S. territory had 60 femicides, and that's a 62% increase over the year before. So there was actually a highly publicized murder of a homeless trans woman who was actually just going into a fast food restaurant to use the restroom, and then was surrounded and then shot and murdered and it was videoed while people laughed in the background. And the governor thought this was potentially put on social media as well. So this gender violence covers not only girls and women, but also transgender people as well. And so they're hoping that this can kind of curb some of the violence that's escalated in the last year.
Yeah. I say this really carefully as a white guy, right? Because I'm going to skate the line, but in certain cultures, transgender and gay LGBTQ society is really looked down upon even more so than, say, in the United States in general. Puerto Rico is a United States territory. At the end of the day, what happened is horrible. I applaud the governor for recognizing for what it is, declaring the emergency, and working to take action. But just as we said in the prior story, laws aren't going to change hearts. Time is going to change hearts. That's my view on it. So two really contrasting stories. Jennifer, separated by 150 miles of ocean, 200 miles of ocean, and the same country. Yes. So thank you for bringing that one. All right. Story number 5. If you're thinking you had a bad day, you could always be 57-year-old Bruce Morway. Bruce had a job interview scheduled with the city of North Olmsted, Ohio, but decided to skip the interview and rob a bank. The would-be bank robber wore that essential item when robbing a bank, a mask. But as you can see in the picture, he has his nose hanging out like a frickin' penis. He wore it all wrong. The North Olmsted Police Department posted a security photo of Morway, which was immediately identified by his parole officer. During the robbery, Morway claimed he had a gun, and he got away with an undisclosed amount of money. There is no word on whether the money was recovered. Jennifer, I don't take pleasure in seeing anybody arrested. Well, okay, maybe Donald Trump if he actually paid for the crimes for what he did. But maybe Bruce isn't actually ready to be out in society and he's safer behind bars. So you get 60 seconds to unpack it.
First of all, like, you feel like if he's been behind bars, he's probably seasoned enough to know they should have covered more of his face, I feel like. But also in the article, they make it seem like it was just like this cavalier choice. Like, I'm going to forego this job interview. I'm just going to go rob a bank instead. I did read that they arrested him on February 11th. So he's now in jail. But yeah, that just potentially seemed like not only a poor choice, like maybe you should have gone to the job interview, but also if you were going to rob the bank, you should have covered up more of your face.
Feeling hella cute. Hey, I'm going to rob a bank today. Maybe go to jail.
And he did.
All right, Jennifer, you ready for story 6?
Oh, this one comes to you straight from Florida, so you know it's good, guys. So we have men at a Florida hotel. These are older men, and I think they're 50s and one's 81, who posed as U.S. Marshals to avoid wearing masks, authorities say. So they're just like chilling at this resort. This is Walter Wayne Brown Jr., who's 53, and Gary Brummett, who is 81. They were asked to cover their faces. The men refused. They threatened to arrest employees and saddle the hotel with a fine. But the scheme collapsed. One employee thought they were acting suspicious and called police. Officers and a real U.S. Marshal, not these fake ones, arrested, and the men on charges of impersonating a federal officer. What's particularly interesting, though, is one of the men brandished a laminated card that said he was a Marshal of the Cherokee Nation. I actually went and did a little background stuff and couldn't find that either one had any connection to the Cherokee Nation. But it's pretty interesting because you always see like these white men are like, my grandma was a Cherokee princess. That's these dudes.
It's funny you closed on that because, Jennifer, a lifetime ago, I dated a woman that claimed she was part Cherokee. It is really amazing how many people in this country, it's like half the country is part Cherokee.
Yeah, everybody's got a Cherokee grandma, princess. Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren, right? Her claim was part Cherokee, if I remember correctly. Yes.
I don't remember if that was. It might have been. I don't know.
Hey, Malcontents, because I know we got smart people to watch the show. Give us the 411 in the comments. We'll go. Just all of that to get out of wearing a mask.
Yeah. That's a lot. You have to like laminate some fake badges. Like, just put the mask on, dude. It's fine.
So, just so everybody knows, Jennifer and I, we do not coordinate on these stories. I know people are like, I see a theme. Actually, there isn't. We pull these out independently and drop them on each other pretty close to the start of the show. Mods and admins, I want to call out again. Go ahead, drop that link into the comments. I'm pointing too far. Into the comments for the poll, because we're more than that halfway point. The other thing is, Malcontents, spam those hearts on Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook. Let those mods and admins know that you love them. If you're on Twitch and you're a subscriber, you should be a subscriber. You can go ahead and use our amazing emotes that were designed for us by Rosa. Rosa does an amazing job. And if you're on YouTube, we love you over there. I know you're like on YouTube Islands. Like, we don't have emotes. We can't spam hearts. You can just go, I love you mods or something like that. And we love y'all who are watching on YouTube. Okay, I get story number 7 and the clock is running. Story number 7 is all about this guy, Ted Cruz, and his awful, horrible, terrible 48 hours. Ted Cruz, the man who in 2016 says we need to build a wall to keep those awful people from Mexico coming in, fled the country because he's living in a state that has no electricity, no natural gas, and no drinking water. He fled with his wife and kids on a flight to Cancun, Mexico, while literally, Texans are freezing to death in their homes. Then to top it all off, he throws his own kids under the bus, going, well, I was flying down there because my kids were on a school trip. But it gets even better. Yeah, his own wife Heidi ratted him out because in chats that have appeared and have been shared with the media, Heidi was asking friends and neighbors, hey, who wants to go with us down to Cancun because there's heat there and our house is too cold for us. Jennifer, I could keep going, but what a dirtbag. You get the glorious 60 seconds to unpack this. You're welcome.
Okay, so first, I think it's hilarious that his wife is the one that gets it busted since, Donald Trump basically called her ugly and he said nothing. Second, Ted Cruz is disgusting, and so is his haircut. But the fact that your state, the state you represent, is in the midst of a crisis and you're like taking your family and headed to your house in Cancun is demonstrative of how little you actually care about your position as an elected official and the constituents you represent. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and use some more of my time. Apparently, he left his dog at home, and the word is, although our research team, Jennifer, I literally read this while we were on the show. Our research team is working on it. My mouth to God, that's going on right now. The poodle's name is allegedly Snowflake.
They could.
Just please let it be true.
You could take yourselves to Cancun, but you can't make sure that your dog is somewhere safe and warm.
And with that, Jennifer, you get to do story number 8.
Okay, we're going to go on to something good here before I share my last story. And it's the Woodland Park Zoo. Welcome to baby gorilla in early February. And the baby girl was born to the zoo's 24-year-old female gorilla, Nadiri. Truth be told, I'm a little bit conflicted about zoos, but the gorillas at the Woodland Park Zoo are actually Western lowland gorillas that are highly endangered. So it's good that they're replenishing the population. The problem is, though, and the baby girl is adorable. But Nadiri, this is her second baby, but she was partially raised in human captivity. And she had issues also with her first baby, kind of neglecting it and really taking it a little bit of time for the maternal instinct to kick in. And she's going through that a little bit again, but she did actually hold the baby a little bit and is showing some interest in it, but it just isn't ready to nurse it yet. So she's having to be assisted by the caretakers at the Woodland Park Zoo, but it is a great time. She was almost 5 pounds when she was born. She's absolutely adorable, and it's always great when we have one of these endangered gorillas reproduce and we have more of them to potentially, hopefully, someday, if we stop farming palm, to reintroduce them back into the wild.
We have video. my God, it's just cuteness overload.
Yes, he's adorable.
I actually, if we get to unpack that story, I actually have things to unpack on that story. So I'm just letting you know, malcontents, because I only got 10 seconds. But so I'm not going to use the 10 seconds. We're just going to jump to story 9. We're getting close. We're getting close for you to really dive in and do those votes. And with that, let me go ahead and start the clock for story number 9. If you've lived in Houston or if you've ever watched local Houston TV, you know Jim Mattress Mac Mackingvale. You could almost think of him as the Vern Funk of Houston. Mackingvale became nationally famous in 2005 when he opened up his 3 furniture stores as emergency shelters for Hurricane Katrina evacuees. During a time when Houston wasn't very welcoming to Hurricane Katrina evacuees because they were a little too black. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Houston, on that. Well, he's done it again, opening up his stores as warming centers and shelters. His 3 furniture stores are accommodating 300 people nightly, following COVID social distant rules, and he is feeding over 800 people daily. Mattress Mac is invested in generators, 15,000 gallons of diesel fuel, porta potties, food trucks, and sanitation stations. He had to get those because the pipes are all frozen in his stores. No one in need is being turned away, either for a place to sleep or just to get warm. Mackingvale said he was moved to action when he saw the police covering the body of a homeless man who had frozen to death on Valentine's Day, and he felt he had to do something. You get 60 seconds to talk about Mattress Mac.
So when you sent this to me earlier, you're like, this is such a great story. Have your tissues ready. And I was like, whatever, I'm tough. I can handle it. That was the most moving story. And some of like these stories of the families who are like, we had nowhere else to go. We went in there. We don't, we can't ever express our appreciation of how he welcomed us and made us feel at home and our children and fed us like, this meal of chicken and rice and whatever. What a good, feel good, like altruistic, wonderful story to come out of this crisis in Texas. As Ted Cruz is basically abandoning the state, you have this man opening up his furniture stores and feeding people who are really in desperate need right now. So this was like an amazing story, and thank you for making me tear up a little bit. Luckily, I wasn't wearing any mascara.
Something we should do, Jennifer, to your point, it really is an excellently written story. I just read it but you're right. It is a magnificently written story. We should 5 fast facts that one. Yes. And we should get that up on the website because It really is a magnificently written story, just from a creative and artistic and a writing standpoint. And with that, you get to take us home, Jennifer, with story number 10.
Oh, so I don't know how much of our audience is familiar with The Bachelor and Bachelorette, but Chris Harrison has taken a leave from his position after he did an interview with a former Bachelorette who happens to be a BIPOC woman named Rachel Lindsay and defended a former contestant who in 2018 took part in a Southern Plantation antebellum themed sorority formal. He was like, we can't really play in the whole white dude devil's advocate role, but it really caused a lot of alarm. And now, of course, you have people coming out saying, well, now he's being canceled and this is ridiculous. But, these are very kind of upholding these racist norms and saying, she did this a couple of years ago. It's not that big a deal. When it really is, idolizing the period right before the Civil War in the U.S. South is actually a really big deal. And she herself has even, apologized for that. It took him a few days to come out and apologize for it. But Rachel Lindsay, who's the BIPOC woman who held the interview, was absolutely appalled, but she handled herself so. She's a lawyer. She's absolutely brilliant and stunning. But she handled herself so well. It was so composed through the entire thing. I was like, oh, wow, you are an impressive woman, because that had to be difficult to sit through.
So, Malcontents, I'm going to let you know something. And Jennifer doesn't know this. This is the first time she's hearing this. On our website, we have Google Analytics. And Google Analytics tracks Jennifer, this will make sense in a second. Tracks scary levels of stuff on people that come to the website, including things like cohort groups on what things interest our audience beyond politics and social action. And you know what the number one thing is, Jennifer? She is hearing this for the first time.
What?
Like celebrity news and crap like this. So you're right on message to our audience. I got to tell you, which is why I've never been, why are you doing this? So I'm going to take liberty to take a few more seconds with this because I could get really judgy about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I have no opinion because I haven't watched the show in years and years and years, but I have confessed to watching trash TV and I cannot get enough of 90 Days Fiancé. And the last thing I'll say, going to the plantation thing, dressing up like that, gross. Defending it, super gross. And I'll leave it at that. Malcontent, poll. Admins, go ahead and drop that poll up there. They'll have the link for that. You can also, it's through our news site. Yeah, you can send us news tips. tips@malcontentment.com. If you have news tips, people send us tips and we respond to them. Our website is malcontentnews.com. We do have that poll link hidden, so to speak, because we just don't want people stumbling in after the show and going, what the heck is this? And how come nobody's listening to me? So drop that link, mods and admins, and we will wait to find out what the polls are. Jennifer, a brief pause for the cause, and then we come back.
Black Coffee is a hub for communities and a hub for meeting people, making friends, and understanding.
What Black Coffee is to me is a place to actually call home, a place where Black youth will feel welcomed, where Black families will come and feel like they're at home.
What we're trying to build is more than just coffee. Community is something that we do naturally. We know who's in the community, we know what the deficits are, and we're trying to fix that. We want to bring people together.
My hope is that the phrase grounded in excellence shows up everywhere and that it becomes a movement.
I'm looking forward to hanging out at Black Coffee with my friends and feeling safe.
Black Coffee to me means opportunity for people like me and my other friends and family to come here and do homework safely and hang out and stuff like that.
That is happening. It is happening.
Jennifer, we have 2 pages now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love our patrons. Thank you so much. And I just dropped my show notes. I literally just slid right off the desk. But that's okay, because I can run them when I hit this intro button. Hey, Kevin, these hearts are for you. Thank you so much for your generosity on Venmo. It is really, really appreciated. Jennifer, we're getting a lot of love tonight from our community for independent journalism, and I love calling out those names on the air as they come in. Our next story is actually breaking news tonight, and it comes to us out of Cal Anderson Park. We were there on December 18th when the sweep happened at Cal Anderson Park, and they removed the unhomed. And we had some unique perspective. I purposely did not go where a lot of the other streamers and independent journalists, and for that matter, mainstream media went. They were in different locations. We were really trying to keep our cameras on the clearing of the unhomed area and documenting that action from SDOT and city parks. And let's run this very short clip as a refresher on what happened on December 18th.
Not seeing is we see nobody taking pictures. We see nobody cataloging. We're seeing no attempt to retain anything inside of this pop-up.
Ready.
And it's just going to go in the trash dumpster. With the argument being, well, it's wet. And we can't store anything that's wet. And again, we had pictures of this stuff on Wednesday. This stuff was not broken up on Wednesday.
Barb, I see Barb is here in the comments of Ground Level News out of Salt Lake City. Barb, I am so here. I'm so glad you are here for this because you might learn, or maybe you know about this, a new political and legal strategy down there in Salt Lake City. This is a story about Ada Yeager. Ada Yeager came to Cal Anderson Park during CHOP in June. She endured 2 sweeps in August, the July 1 sweep, the September 1st sweep, and then came December 18th. And the legal argument, because she sued the city for the violation of her rights, saying that giving her just 48 hours notice was a violation of her constitutional rights. We showed you the video of what happened there. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, you may be looking at that and going, well, that just looks like a hellhole there. What a disgusting mess. It didn't look like that before Seattle police and Seattle Parks went through. No, it was not happiness and Skittles in there either, but it didn't look anything like what you saw in there. And we have that on camera before the police came through. And if you look in that clip, if you go back, if you weren't watching close enough, you see bins filled, plastic bins filled, dumped on the ground, tipped over with personal belongings in there. And what the lawyers were arguing and what Ada was arguing is that in evaluating what to keep, and out of everything that was in Cal Anderson Park, Jennifer, 32 clear plastic bags is all that was retained.
Yeah.
And what the unhomed are saying is, you threw out my vital paperwork. You threw out my insurance card. You threw out my identification. You threw out my medical records. You threw out my medications that I need. And you left me with, I had no way to refill any of this stuff because you destroyed everything that I owned. Well, today, the city of Seattle said, fuck it.
What's the F-bomb? This is written.
And they said, we're just going to settle. And so they're settled for $10,000. Ada was fortunate, Jennifer. She got one of those clear plastic bags with some of her belongings back. Mm-hmm. An umbrella and a can opener.
Which is disgusting considering that, before they even went through and did the sweep, wasn't part of the deal that they had to have somewhere and hold on to belongings for a particular amount of time. And then they just went through and of course destroyed everything. And yeah, there was so much entirely wrong with the way in which all of that went down. It's $10,000. I mean, I don't know. It just, the false promises that came out of that, the destruction, the displacement in the middle of a pandemic, all of it was disgusting. And $10,000. I mean, I'm glad that they're getting that money. It just doesn't seem like it's commensurable to what happened.
And of course, let's not forget, Ada probably isn't getting all of those $10,000. There's probably some of that money is going to the lawyers. Yeah. I say that cautiously. She very well may be represented by a lawyer that's working pro bono. Not all lawyers work that way. But if she's represented by a lawyer that wants leafy greeny money, then the lawyer is taking their cut off the top. Barb, who's with Ground Level News, Salt Lake City, and is one of the premier activists for the unhomed in the country. And I say that in all sincerity. She is a fantastic voice. She is a tremendous activist streamer. I have mad respect for her because if you want to be an activist streamer or you think you're an activist streamer, I think that Barb skates the line between journalism and activism perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. And I have mad respect for everything that she does down there in Salt Lake City. Mad love for you. All right, Jennifer, are we ready for the next segment? I'm trying to keep it moving tonight.
No, we gotta do the Black History Month thing though. Don't forget.
Say again. Sorry. What?
History Month. Black History Month.
Oh, okay. We can do Black History Month. We have 2 more sections to go, but if you want to do it now,
Yep.
do it now.
Cool. I just want to make sure we don't forget it. So for Black History Month tonight, I'm bringing you guys, and the mods have the link, our wonderful mods. It's Polly Murray's book, Proud Shoes. And there's been I've seen a lot of memes going around about, not memes so much, but kind of like posts about Polly Murray. And she was an incredible woman. She was a lawyer. She was a Black activist, but she also wrote some books. And this book, Proud Shoes, is kind of like this biographical kind of family history that tells the story of her grandma, who is very much kind of conflicted because she is what's considered mixed, or at the time what they called octoroon. But she is the product of, her mother was a slave on a large southern plantation. She's the product of rape, and her father. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the genealogy correct. I actually taught this book. Her father was part of the family that built UNC, University of North Carolina. And so there's this very like weird line that she toes about being very proud of her heritage, but also being the grandmother, not being comfortable with the fact that she's seen as Black. And so Murray tells this like amazing story of her family and her life, and it's an absolutely phenomenal book. And like I said, the mods have the link for it, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's not super academic and jargony. You can give it to kids to read. It's a really phenomenal book.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that and that reading recommendation. I call this out in every show. Jennifer and I, for Black History Month, we had a conversation and we consciously decided that as two pasty white people to come up here and elucidate on, I got to drop a $10 word tonight, to elucidate on Black history would be way out of our lane and not the place to be. So Jennifer has been identifying documentaries, books, other information that you can go and read that have been created and documented by Black individuals to go and learn about Black history. And Jennifer, thank you so much for that. And we breaking news I have for you, Jennifer.
I saw it in the comments.
The dog's name is Snowflake.
Well, yeah, I checked the chat while you were rolling something.
Winter is coming.
Oh, Ted Cruz this week. He's like channeling Marjorie Taylor Greene this week. He is the gift that keeps on giving. And by the way, Ted, I lived in Houston for 8 years. You're fucked.
What's the F-bomb? This is
Texans, they don't forget this shit, man. They don't. You're like going to have to come up with a cure for cancer and make guns free. And even then, you might still be screwed. Texans are a funny, funny bunch. All right, next segment.
Moving on.
You're a liberal. Oh my God, how many times have I heard it? Press Tifa. Biased. We said when Joe Biden was elected, we were going to hold Joe Biden every bit as equally accountable as we held Donald Trump. And Jennifer, Joe Biden is not off to the greatest start. As a matter of fact, things outside of maybe his support for Texas have been off to a pretty crappy start this week.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
And I know we've got a number of things we're going to unpack, and I want to be sensitive to time because we're into the second hour. We finished the first hour, we're into the second hour, and we have Insurrection update also. So we got this, but there's a lot to unpack. Joe Biden had a town hall meeting, and he dropped facts and figures and information as politicians do. And one thing that we know about Joe from his campaigning and from the debates, because his stuff was fact-checked, and generally his stuff was really airtight. Joe wasn't Donald Trump bad at this town hall, but it was bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Why don't you start on the minimum wage discussion?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is just like one of a few bad things that have happened this week that are not making me look favorably upon the administration at the moment. Okay, so the minimum wage. Joe said, quote, for example, if we gradually increased it, when we indexed it at 720, if we kept it indexed to inflation, people would be making $20 an hour right now. That's what it would be, end quote. But this is false. Today's federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour, which took effect in 2009, would not even be close to $20 an hour if Congress had decided to link it to inflation. Adjusted for inflation, $7.25 in January 2009 was equal to $8.98 in January 2021. The White House told CNN that Biden was attempting to refer to a claim from a progressive think tank about how the minimum wage had been $24 an hour in 2020 if the minimum wage had kept pace with productivity growth, not inflation, since 1968, not 2009. Whew, that was a lot.
Yeah, and then the way the White House tried to spin it, it doesn't add up. I'm going to pause the story here for a minute. Hey, Cassie, I just saw your message to us. Malcontents, I have some great news. Cassie is one of the attorneys that was representing Ada Yeager, and apparently they're watching tonight. And Cassie has let me know that they did the case pro bono, and Ada is getting all of the money. So I just wanted to let Malcontents know, and that is one of the beauties of independent journalism and controlling a live show, because we're able to do stuff like this. And in a newsroom, when you get it wrong, it ends up like on page 37 2 weeks later. If you, Cassie, one thing I will say, if you haven't watched us before, we are very, very quick to go. We got something wrong, or we're going to go ahead and dig and try to find something out on that. So thank you for reaching out to us in real time and giving us that opportunity to share that good news. Malcontents, spam some hearts for the legal team and for the attorneys that are doing great work to defend our unhomed population here in Seattle, because certainly the city isn't doing it. All right, Jennifer, back off my screed. Let's get back to this, conversation on the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Joe Biden wanted to pack this in to the COVID relief bill, but if I want to get to the point of, we want to get it right. I believe that it was going to be, we would get to $15 in like 2025 was the original plan. It wasn't like a flip of a switch. Now, full stop, I'm certainly not an economics major. I studied economics in college as part of my business degree, and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to economics. And it is generally not recommended to turn the dial like that, because bad things can happen when you turn the dial. However, in 1949, a certain president called Harry Truman almost doubled the minimum wage. And everybody said it was going to plunge the country back into recession. The United States went into a very severe recession at the end of World War II because all of the war spending collapsed, all of the war production collapsed, and millions of men came home to find women working, and there wasn't as many jobs going around, and the women's ended up getting pushed back, and then blah, 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 and that's a whole conversation for another time. But the bottom line is that's the start of the women's liberation movement. I'm going to acknowledge it and keep moving. Guess what happened after he doubled the minimum wage? The United States went on to have the most prosperous period in the history of this country. Yeah. We also had 34% union membership, some of the highest rates of home ownership. And you could just go and healthcare was basically just given as part of your employment. There was no such thing as employment as will. State colleges were free. It was total socialism.
Don't say that word. You'll scare people. Oh, probably not here. Other people, though.
So, I mean, this doesn't feel like Joe screwed up. This feels like Joe was trying to play fast and loose with the numbers. I'm going to call it for what it is.
Yeah.
This doesn't help the conversation, because the other side is just going to latch onto this. And whether they're going to say, well, there's Sleepy Joe, he's got the Alzheimer's, or whether they're going to say, see, he's lying, it doesn't matter. They're going to latch onto this stuff.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you got to do better, man. And we're going to hold your feet to the fire. With that, I'm going to move to the next one. And that same town hall, he talked about the undocumented population. And I have a quote here. The vast majority of the people, those 11 million undocumented, referring to the undocumented people, they're not Hispanics. They're people who came on a visa, who were able to buy a ticket to get in a plane and didn't go home. They didn't come across the Rio Grande swimming. All right. So, Joe, they didn't come across the Rio Grande swimming. Come on, dude. Like, you were that close to saying wetbacks, man. Come on. That's number one. Like, represent your party. That's number one. Here's the second thing. He did get part of this right. The part that he did get right is that most people that are in this country illegally did not sneak across a border on foot. They arrived here on an airplane and they just overstayed their visa. That's it. It's a vast majority of people that did that. But the part that he got wrong is that most people aren't Hispanic. That isn't true at all. And it's important that we acknowledge that, because the Hispanic community, and I know some people don't call them Hispanic. I'm not going to list off the 21 countries that represents. And if there was a better term, then let us know in the comments, because nobody's let us know. People of Latin American or South American descent. I don't know if that's a better, I'm looking that up on the fly. 73% of undocumented people in the United States speak Spanish at home. 68% are from Mexico or Central America. Another 7% are from South America. They are mostly Hispanic. And most of them are good people. And most of them are people that just want the same crack that we have. And Jennifer, the other thing is this, they took our jobs. I should have had that on a button. They're doing jobs that you don't want to do. That's right. If there's any chuds watching,
humanoid underground dweller.
They're not taking your jobs. You don't want to pick fruit. You don't want to clean hotel rooms. You don't want to work friggin' picking peppers down by the Salton Sea in Southern California on a 115-degree day, sucking in pesticides. They're doing stuff you don't want to do because you're holding out for a management job one day.
So I'm just going to say this because I just finished teaching the part of my 1900s class where we talk about the Mexican-American War. If the Mexican-American War had gone the other way, we'd all be speaking Spanish. But this is a war of U.S. aggression where, the U.S. went in and took on a military that they knew, a neighbor military, that they knew was still in the, throes of recovery from independence a couple decades earlier and trying to establish some kind of, authority within its own country, and went down there and basically, did a massive land grab. People don't realize that the majority of the California and what we now call the Southwest was actually occupied by people who would be considered Latino, Latin, Hispanic, whatever term you would like to refer to them as. Up until the mid-19th century, and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo actually told Mexican citizens that stayed within those lands of the newly, crafted United States that they could enjoy the comforts of U.S. citizenship if they renounced their Mexican citizenship and stayed on those lands for a year, and that was a big fat lie.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Yeah, I think Chevy summed it up perfectly right there at the end. Yes, all of the above. And tons of comments coming from our community on things like the healthcare industry would collapse if it wasn't for undocumented workers, because they do a lot of jobs in healthcare. That's right. That people don't want to do because you're holding out for a management job one day. That's actually another National Lampoon's Vacation reference in there. We have a couple more topics on Joe. I want to keep this really tight. We both got a little on our soapbox on this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about COVID stimulus, right? Donald Trump did this. I'm not going to sign it. 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 And the other thing is Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump got in this war over the stimulus checks. Donald Trump wanted $2,000. Mitch McConnell said, yeah, suck it. Did $600. And then Donald Trump waited until the 26th, and then the next day he caved and he signed it. We don't know why he caved in the last bit, but he did. But it threw the nation's businesses and people that are relying on unemployment into complete frickin' chaos. And there are people in the state of Washington right now that still haven't been paid and haven't been paid since December. And we're getting to the end of February because of this fuckery that happened.
This is raining.
Well, the Trump-McConnell plan, that ends on March 14th. We're February 18th and we lose 3 days because this is a 28. Guess what, Joe? You got about a week left before we're going to be in the exact same boat come March 14. I get the insurrection. I get all of that. You've got the votes in the Senate. You've got the votes in the House. Do it. End of story. That's all I'm going to say. Jennifer, talk about student loans.
Yeah. So recently, or this week too, it was, it kind of came out. He's like, no, I'm not going to support this, $50,000 in student loan debt relief that had been talked about as part of the campaign, and a lot of the other Democrats wanted him to sign on to, because student debt, I can attest to this personally, grad school is not cheap, is out of control. And it's like one of the things that people are most, you come out of school and student debt loans, the interest rate is incredible. The payments are usually pretty high depending on what you're doing, and it's really hard to get them forgiven. So this would have meant a lot to a lot of people, would have taken a lot of debt off a lot of people's plate to have that reduction in student loan debt. So he's come out pretty much saying, yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that this week. And there's the other piece I wanted to address, because I do teach, the opening school plan, where he's like, it'd be great if teachers had vaccines, but it's not mandatory for reopening. Excuse me? I don't want to be locked in a room, no offense to my students, whom I love dearly, with a bunch of other people, masked or not, in poorly circulated small room, spewing ideas around with each other, unvaccinated, because the President of the United States has said, school should open, but it's not mandatory for teachers to have vaccines.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Joe, do better.
You're pissing me off, Joe.
So you know what?
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
You're biased. Yeah, you're full of shit and you're not paying attention. Jennifer, you ready for our next segment? And before we jump into that, vote in the polls. Mods, admins, one more time, drop the link, because the polls are getting ready to close. Jennifer, why don't we get to Eric Munchell and his mom? Mm-hmm. That's when we can pause. I don't know which one of us is going to get that story, but whoever gets it, we can pause and say to our mods and admins, time to let us know what the winner was. All right, so I think I'll go first, but let me go ahead and roll the start. All right. Here we go, Jennifer. Insurrection update. We haven't done one of these in a while, and I'm excited.
I'm a little excited too.
Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell are at war. And what some are seeing is a fight for the soul of the Republican Party. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time saying that with a straight face. Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell are at war. On Tuesday, the former social media icon Donald Trump attacked Senate Minority Leader McConnell, saying the Republican Party can never be represented or strong with political leaders like Senator Mitch McConnell at its helm. Trump said it in a statement put out by the Save America Political Action Committee, because the former social media icon isn't allowed on any social media platforms. And although Parler is up and running, they've basically wiped everything that is on there and new people can't sign up. So really the site isn't actually running that much. The former social media icon described McConnell as a hack who will not be able to lead Republicans back to victory, McConnell, for his part, has basically said, I'm just going to ignore Trump. I don't know if he's contacted Melania about getting that coat. Privately, some are advising Trump that this is a war he's not going to win.
Mitch McConnell gives like zero about Donald Trump right now, but that's not like necessarily going to stop Donald Trump from trying to go to war with Mitch McConnell, because like what else does he have to do? He can't ruin the country anymore, so he's got to find something to occupy his time besides golf.
You get the next story.
All right, let's do it. Oh, goody. 6 U.S. Capitol police officers are suspended with pay and another 29 are under investigation. All right, here's some good news for SPD. Seattle police officers can breathe easier knowing they are now second on the list of police departments investigating officers involved in the possible insurrection or possibly involved in the insurrection. The Capitol Police have suspended 6 officers and announced 29 more are under investigation for aiding in the insurrection. Social media video, parlor scrapes, body cameras, and security video have caught a number of officers committing actions that range from questionable to outright treasonous. One of these suspended officers took a selfie with someone who was part of the mob that overtook the Capitol, according to Rep. Tim Ryan, a Democrat from Ohio, and I think we've seen that make the rounds on social media. Another wore a Make America Great Again hat and started directing people around the building. Who needs Lauren Boebert? Anyone watching with us on January 6, 2021 saw horrible actions by Capitol officers, while others committed incredible acts of bravery. Eugene Goodman, despite those behind that thin blue line not having their back.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Well, I don't know. OPA could be happy that I'm getting much better at the throws, Jennifer. I'm getting way better at the throws. Great moments in Jewish sports history there. Okay. OPA in Seattle could be happy to know that there's now a police department with more people under investigation than Seattle. The source for that story, CNN, by the way, inaccurately says there are 2 Seattle police officers being investigated. CNN, do better. 6 officers that are being.
Winter is coming.
Anyway, there you go. Leo Bozell IV has been arrested. The arrests may have slowed down, Jennifer, but they're still happening. Leo Brett Bozell IV, the son of conservative activist L. Brent Bozell III, was arrested and charged with 3 federal offenses. The younger Bozell is charged with obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building, and disorderly conduct. The complaint features several images of him on the floor of the flippant Senate, where he was wearing a sweatshirt featuring the name of his Christian school. This is how you know Antifa didn't do this, okay? This is how you know, because Antifa would have blocked friggin' up. They wouldn't have been advertising, hey, this is how you arrest me. Look at all this PII I'm wearing. Bozell III is more likely known for his crusade against liberal media bias.
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
He is the founder of the website Newsbusters. Now, I'm sure people are going to go like, who the hell are these people? But I'm sure as soon as I said Newsbusters, they go, oh, that guy. That's the dad. Wait till you hear who the grandpa is. The grandfather of Bozell IV, who is Bozell II, was Senator Joseph McCarthy's speechwriter. Yes.
Wow.
Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy, who gave us the term McCarthyism. And I know that I waited 4 years, Jennifer, for the have you no shame moment to come from somebody in Washington, D.C. It never happened.
Oh, wow. I just can't get enough names. Why are there 4 of them? That's what I want to know. Why is there 4 of them? Why are there 4 Leos? Could they not think of any other names?
We can hope there isn't 5.
I know. Just like, what do you even say about this? Oh, all right. Man, poor dog.
I think you get to do the pause for the cause.
Oh, what? We're doing a pause for the cause?
Well, no, because you're. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's right. I do. You get the next story. I'm one page ahead on you. Sorry.
Okay. So Jonathan Millis is angry that Antifa gets all the credit. In the world of the far right, Antifa is to blame for everything, while one insurrectionist isn't having it. Jonathan Millis, also known as Cowboy Screech, due to his resemblance to recently deceased actor Dustin Diamond, took to Facebook to further incriminate himself. Quote, "Don't you dare try to tell me that people are blaming this on Antifa and BLM, Millis wrote, referring to Black Lives Matter. "We proudly take responsibility for storming the castle. Antifa and BLM are too pussy."
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Mute. I can't hear you. Hey, I can't hear you. Muted. I can't hear you.
We have Cowboy Screech and we have Dances with Traitors.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
it's just, this story is the gift that keeps on giving. We're so sorry, Dustin Diamond, that after your death, your untimely death, you're going to now be go down as Cowboys. Who came up with Cowboy Screech?
I don't know. Yeah, that whole was a mess. The mess.
I muted because you were reading and I was laughing so hard.
Okay. I was like, I hope I'm not muted. I was like,
no. I was laughing so hard. All right, mods and admins, it's time. Let us know what the winning story was in the poll. The poll should close. You got like 1 minute. Give them like while I'm reading this, that's it. And then you can close the poll and let us know. Jennifer, maybe if you can keep an eye on the comments zipping by, then you can go. This is the winning story.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Eric Munchel and his mom, Lisa Eisenhart, aren't going to get out of jail. A federal judge has ruled that the two of the most memorable participants in the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol should continue to cool their jets in a jail cell while their trial is pending. Eric Munchel, who notoriously hopped a guardrail in the Senate chamber while armed with a taser and the zip tie handcuffs, along with his mother, Lisa Eisenhart, espoused ideas so dangerous, according to the judge, and chilling that they cannot be safely released into the community. U.S. District Court Judge Royce Lambert, who's been really busy on this shit, Jennifer, ruled on Wednesday, the mother and son have embraced armed revolution, expressing willingness to commit violence, murder, and even die in an attempt to stop the election results and outcome. The judge determined that they are a danger to society, you think, and a danger to themselves. Polls are closed.
So the family that radicalizes together goes to jail together? Is that how this works?
Mummy, oh mother, I want to see my mummy. I need Biddy. You need Biddy? I need Biddy, mummy. Mummy, I need Biddy.
Oh,
hallelujah!
Oh, no.
Holy shit!
All right, Jennifer, take us home.
Oh, I get John Sullivan. All right, John Sullivan, aka Jayden, aka Antifa mastermind, the entire insurrection and some fever dream of the political right, can stay on social media. A federal magistrate judge has turned down prosecutors' efforts to block Sullivan from using Twitter and Facebook, but ordered him to end his involvement with a business he founded that the Justice Department says promotes and glorifies violent protests. Revealed in court filings, Sullivan was paid $35,000 last month by CNN and NBC for providing video he shot during the insurrection, which included the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. The political right, including Squad President Mike Solon, have latched on to John Sullivan as the Antifa mastermind behind the election insurrection. But multiple investigations to Sullivan that started back in August indicating that Sullivan is in it for Sullivan. One interesting thing in the judge's decision, Sullivan is not banned from using encrypted communication software. He's got a lot going on, that guy. John Sullivan's a busy character.
Malcontent Happy Hour is brought to you by Soup. Soup for your family. For entire head holes with Malcontent news and Soup for your family. When you watch on Twitch, you earn Soup for your family points. Please don't throw the Soup for your family points at people. Oh my goodness. It's so laughable about this guy, John Sullivan, you know, that he is the mastermind of this. The story, that story that's pulled from goes on to point out that Black Lives Matter, everybody affiliated, was like all the way back in July, was like, this dude, no. And there is a lot of connections between him and his Proud Boy brother. And his Proud Boy brother has spoken at John Sullivan events, and John Sullivan has spoken at Proud Boy events. And it's all kind of like weird and shady. But you know, the one thing that hurts my brain on that?
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
He gets to use encrypted communication software?
Yep.
This is like... Do better. This is like the theme of the night, man. Do better.
Yeah.
By the way, there are balled up, crumpled balls of paper all over the studio for about 2 weeks right now. I have to pick this stuff all up.
Right.
If the cat ever went in here, the cat would probably just be like, oh my. I don't even know where to begin. There are so many things I could get in trouble with in here now. Jennifer, did you see what our story was?
No, because I don't have my glasses on. I can't see that far.
I have like a really like Malcolm. If you see my eyes going like this, there's a really big monitor down here, like a ridiculously big monitor that we use for video production that I've co-opted to be in here. And we use this monitor so that clients can watch what's going on in the studio. So, I mean, it's big. And the chat is down there, and I need it that big so I could read it. Even though I have another big monitor I'm pointing at right now, I can't read that stuff. What was the story?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. We're waiting to find out what the story is.
It
is.
Check our chat. See if they
Winter is coming.
have anything going on in there. No.
I don't know if they know themselves.
No. I just usually sometimes the mods will put it in the chat, but I don't see it.
Oh, Cruise and Snowflake. Is that what won? Wait a minute. That's not from a mod and admin. That may be like somebody hoping it's Cruise and Snowflake.
Oh.
Yes, we have confirmation from a mod and admin. Ted Cruz. We get to unpack Ted Cruz. Oh my goodness gracious. There's so much to unpack here, Jennifer. I will start. Maybe we do like a back and forth here. So I'll start. Okay. How MAGA is Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz is so MAGA that he made fun of California and the wildfires and that they had to do rolling blackouts, but then went across the border to Mexico to escape his own state that has no electricity. Jennifer, your turn.
Jesus. Like, why do we have to even unpack this? Can't we just pack him up in a suitcase and like ship him off to Mexico permanently? Like the citizens of Texas would be far better off, and probably Snowflake too.
He threw his own kids and wife under the bus.
Yeah.
And his poor dog Snowflake.
I bet Cruz is an excellent husband.
Hallelujah!
Oh. Did you imagine like the conversation after like Donald Trump called her ugly and he had to go home and after he didn't stick up for her? Like, could you?
Yeah, exactly. How MAGA is Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz helped support the insurrection, and then, even though he was supposed to be, in theory, an impartial juror at the impeachment hearing, he went and coordinated with Fox News and the defense team while the hearing was going on. That's how MAGA Ted Cruz is.
You want to see how MAGA Ted Cruz is? Just look at his freaking haircut. Like,
okay, see, go ahead. Bag on the mullet. Bag on the mullet. Here, you know what? Wait. Here you go. We got pictures of him. There you go. You can start ripping into it. You got 26 seconds left.
26 seconds. I don't even know where to even begin with that. You know, we talk about like business in the front, insurrection in the back. But do insurrectionists, well, I guess like maybe some insurrectionists have that haircut and want to be associated, with it. But I feel like that should be like, have its own name. Like, I don't know. We need to find some kind of name for that haircut that links it to both Cruz and the insurrection and MAGA. So I don't know. I'm open to suggestions, but it's like the most. Who told him that this was a good style to cut your hair? Fire your barber. Like I don't even know.
Could we call it a muzzle, like a cross between a mullet and Cruz?
Okay.
Muzzle?
I have a feeling now.
A muzzle? I can't even pronounce it.
Maybe Heidi Cruz gave him that haircut at home as punishment for not defending her from the comments. He's still angry. It's been 4 years. She's mad. She gave him that haircut.
I'm gonna cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, that picture of him, that last picture where he's sitting like in the with no mask on, by the way. Apparently, Ted Cruz is trying to commit biological warfare by bringing deadly Mexican diseases back to the United States. Apparently, that was taken in the Admiralty Club where he was waiting to fly back. Because I had to chaperone my kids and my wife couldn't handle it. But of course, the other thing we didn't even talk about, we only glossed over it. His wife totally threw him under the bus because the wife was like, picking friends. Hey, there's no heat. Let's get the hell out of here. Who wants to come with us where it's sunny and warm?
Yeah, Heidi she's throwing him under the bus. Like, I think it's intentional. I still think she's mad. The haircuts, the throwing him under the bus and like having the documented, evidence of asking friends to go to Mexico. This is all part of a master plan. She's still mad. She's going to take him down.
Mods admins, if you could do this, if you could drop a link to the story that was written in the comments, if you could drop a link to the story about why the electrical grid in Texas failed. It's one of these pieces, Jennifer, we did a ton of research on and like 10 people read.
Yeah.
And I get it. People want...
Sure. Yeah.
I'm learning about journalism in the news business, and some of the aspects of it, Malcontents, is flat out gross. Yeah. And we are trying to not embrace the grossness as much as possible. And you can help us not embrace the grossness by clicking on the 2,000 word stories that we've researched heavily a lot more, because then we do more of that. Why do you only do salacious, awful stuff? Because that's what you click on. Mm-hmm. Anyway, mods admins, drop a link into that, because that will provide you a lot of information on just why it became the shit show that it became there
Winter is coming.
Texas.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. What Governor Abbott, what Ted Cruz has done for Texas, they want for the rest of the United States. Yeah. They want you to have this wonderful, beautiful experience. And Jennifer, it is not lost on me that 6 weeks ago, Texans were saying, we're going to secede from the nation. We don't need the rest of you. We're Texas. We got oil. We got guns. We got crops. We got big National Guard. We got like Air Force. We're on that. We don't need any of you. And now they're like, federal government, please save us.
Yeah.
Including, remember, Ted Cruz, who in 2012 voted to deny residents of New York devastated by Superstorm / Hurricane Sandy. He voted to deny them aid. Basically going, well, it's their own fault.
Yeah, he's just gross. Like, Ted Cruz is a parasite, a leech, something disgusting that I can't quite put into words. That is what Ted Cruz is.
Because what's happened in Texas is the unbridled this, and I could end up going an hour, and I'm not. That's why I'm going. Read the story. You'll understand if you read the story. But it is essentially unbridled capitalism to like a Blade Runner type of, or Judge Dredd type of universe, right? A dystopian universe specific to their power industry there. And in creating, in the name of consumer choice, what they did starting in 1999, their entire power grid has become so neglected that it's practically Soviet grade. They created essentially Soviet era failing infrastructure in the name of unbridled capitalism. And anybody in Texas who's a politician, Texans, telling you, well, we never saw this possibly happening. Or if you're one of the people saying, well, this is a once in a, it's not. It happened 10 years ago in 2011. It happened 10 years ago. And ERCOT was told, you need to do these investments. You know how much it was? $100 million. That's it. $100 million. And guess what, Texas? If you're one of these people like, I don't want to keep the government, keep them flat-footed goombas in Washington, D.C. out of my life, and you got burst pipes in your home, you better read your homeowner's insurance policy very, very carefully. Because a lot of homeowners insurance policies don't cover that shit. And guess who you're going to have to go? You're going to have to go to the federal government and get a guaranteed low interest loan from FEMA. Because the other thing they have in Texas, which actually isn't a bad thing, Jennifer, is Texas laws on treating your home like an ATM machine and getting home equity lines of credit are actually very tight. And it is something actually that Texas has done right. They made that decision years ago in defense of home ownership. And it's one of the reasons when the great economic crash happened in 2008 that Texas did not suffer like many other states. And again, I'll give an inch where the inch is deserved. And the last thing, it wasn't green energy. Jennifer, do you know where there's windmills that power things?
Where, David?
They're in Antarctica. Down at all the research stations in Antarctica. They run on windmills there. They have diesel generators as backups, but they run on because they have these things. They're called heaters, and they heat the turbines so the hydraulic fluid doesn't freeze and it just runs. And ERCOT was told to do that, and part of that is Ted Cruz and his bullshit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Do something, Texas. Because, last thing, Jennifer, I'll close on this. I've seen people from Texas go, but I'm a liberal. I voted for Joe Biden and we're gerrymandered. And that's why. No, it's not why. Because gerrymandering has nothing to do with Ted Cruz getting elected, because that is a statewide election. It has nothing to do with districts. If you're pissed off, Texas, I lived in Texas 8 years. I'm reading. You guys are pissed. Do something. Do better. The theme of the night. All right. I think we could do like 2 minutes for questions, Jennifer, and then that's it. So if anybody's got questions, drop them in the comment. Here's the last chance. Go ahead and screw with that algorithm. Let those mods admins know that you love them. Spam those hearts. Get it out there. And the last thing is consider being a patron. It helps keeps the lights on around here, literally and metaphorically. And I know it takes like 20 seconds for the words to get out of my mouth to get up onto the air, so that's why I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Rio Grande Valley sprung well because he has some support in that community down there, and the Republican Party has made inroads in that because the message of Democrats are communists and communists are bad really resonate from people that have left Latin American countries where they hear communism and they think Venezuela.
Yep.
And that's why. So there's your answer to that. And the Democrats need to have an answer for that.
Yep.
And Joe Biden dragging his feet on things like he is, Joe, not the answer. Do better. Anyway, there's the answer to that. We're going to give you like 30 more seconds. If there's no questions, we're going to say out. I loved the candle, Jennifer, by the way.
Thanks.
It was a nice touch.
You know, it made it almost kind of like mood lighting.
We have to get you a better microphone, and we got to get you like some studio lights. And
yeah, I agree. This really like fantastic purple shirt right now, and you can't even tell. You can't even tell.
You look great. Cut it out, but we do. We need. If we had some better lights, your wouldn't be as your little. It's not pixelated. What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember.
Pale?
It's not grainy. It's not pixelated. Photographers, help me out. I'm totally spacing on the word.
I don't know.
I don't think we're getting any questions, Jennifer. Or if we are, I'm just not seeing them, or they're not getting into the universe. So we've gone way over again. But I think it was a good show. I like the show.
I do too. We got to do an insurrection update, and that was awesome.
I know we haven't done one in a while because there hasn't been as much to cover. We are definitely going to continue to monitor the situation out of Washington, D.C. Certainly alarming, up to 35 police officers involved. It's alarming, but anybody watch the videos on the 6th, you shouldn't be that surprised.
Yep.
All right, Jennifer, I'm going to say good night, goodbye, farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, and all that other good stuff.
Boys.
Be good, Malcontent. See you Monday, unless something big happens in the world. Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent. Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontent Antifa. Fuck you.
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.